Well, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the 5th of July. Good morning to you all. For those of you who are joining us, my name is Brandon Woodard. I serve as the lead pastor of Reconcile Community Church here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm super excited to be with you all. Um, it's been a crazy 24 hours for little Brandon and I. We were in Knightdale, North Carolina. So that is a suburb of Raleigh. And so we were there preaching for my good friend, Russell McCutcheon at the Reconciliation Church there in Knightdale. So awesome time to be able to go and preach in his summer series. It was fun. I brought my oldest boy with me, so he got to experienced life on the road with his dad, which was always fun. Always fun. I'm gonna get back to that, but I do want to comment, say hello, like, and share this post so that we can be an encouragement for those who may want it. Like and share to be an encourager. But yeah, little Brandon and I, my goal is every time I have to go out and travel, every time that I have to go and speak somewhere, no matter where it's at, I'm going to take one of my kids with me. I think that it's always cool. I think as a parent to be able to include your child, not only in what you do, but just to give them the experiences that you get to experience. And there's so many things, life lessons I learned from this. So many things that were just so encouraging by watching my son experience flying on a plane, watching my son, go through security checkpoints, to watch my son, check into a hotel, right? These are some of these things he's done before. He can't remember the last time he flew on a plane, but he's flown on a plane before. So this is the first time he can actually recall it. He's checked in hotels before. I mean, we just came from vacation where we checked in hotels, but it was something different about him doing it with just me, where it was just he and I. Um, this time we had service and it wasn't his mom and, family members around him. It was just him sitting by himself while daddy's up preaching. It was different for him, but there are so many things I learned from him as we were out. Excuse me. We didn't get back until about 12:30 last night. So bear with me if I yawn a few times throughout this. But I wanted to share something with you that was so encouraging there's a few things that I want to share with you that were encouraging about my time with my son as we were traveling and I was preaching. The first thing that I realized is that my son is very, very, very he's very astute. And because he's very, very astute, he makes some deductions that are like, how did you get there, buddy? So we're sitting in the airport, and one of our flights is delayed. So he's looking at the plane, and he's seeing all of these trucks and stuff coming towards the plane, and he starts to freak out, and he begins to say stuff like, Daddy, I don't think I want to get on this plane because it's gonna fall out of the air. Or, Dad, I think this one is gonna crash. Now, y'all know you can't say that in the airport. You can't be out here saying the plane gonna crash or it's gonna blow up. People are real skittish in the airport. And so I was trying to tell him, buddy, no, it's gonna be okay because they have the people working on the plane. Like, you don't have to worry about it. Like, the pilot knows what he's doing. He or she knows what they're doing. And the people down there, they know what they're doing. You just got to trust them. But he was so set on this plane being broken because he sees all of these trucks, and because he knows what these trucks are to some degree. He knows that there's something wrong. And it just got me to thinking, that's how we are too. We've talked about this multiple times, but to see it from the vantage point of a father to my son, it was interesting to see how he was so nervous to get on this plane. He was so nervous because he saw everything that was happening. But my reassurance to him, to remind him, hey, look, buddy, everything's going to be okay. Hey, buddy, this is what is going to happen. helped him to focus enough to say, all right, I'm gonna get on the plane. And I think the reason why it's important for us to stay in the Word of God is because there are going to be a lot of times where life is throwing us parenthetical left hooks, right? Life's going to be coming at us fast. It's going to be hitting us with some stuff. And it may feel at times that, man, our life may be a bit chaotic. And we may not want to take the next step that God has for us in our lives. We may say, you know what, I don't want to move. I don't want to take this step yet because it seems so uncertain. But God, through his word, is reminding us, no, everything's going to be okay. Look, I'm reminding you in here in this book that everything's going to be okay. Look what I've done before. Look how I move and look how I operate. I got you. Everything's fine. I got the right people on the job. I got things handled. I got things situated. I'm going to open the door when it's necessary. I just need you to walk through it. I need you to trust me. There was one thing that I saw so much from my son. We had 2 flights that were delayed. And in both times he did that. But both times I was able to reassure him, and he was able to get on a plane just fine. The other thing that I noticed about my son is that he's extremely impatient. He's extremely impatient. I don't know which parent he got that from. I think he got it from me. But he's extremely impatient. Extremely impatient. Now, here's the funny thing. I told y'all we were going to preach. I was going to preach somewhere. So the church was gracious enough to give us a ticket that was basically like a first class ticket. I've never had a first class ticket before. So that moves differently. Like that's a different kind of movement. I don't know if y'all have ever had this experience. This was a first for me to fly in first class. And so I'm telling him, like, we see everybody, right? But we're sitting in the waiting area, waiting for at the gate, waiting for them to call us up. And he's getting antsy because he wants to get on the plane. This is his very first ride from Cincinnati to wherever we were connecting. And he's sitting there. He's so excited. He got his iPad. He got his headphones. He got his book bag. He got his little water bottle. He got his chew. He has bubble gum because I told him he needed his bubble gum. So he's just excited to sit on this plane. He's excited to sit on the plane, y'all. He don't care about nothing else. He wants to sit on this plane. This plane was not delayed, so he didn't see he was ready to get on this plane. And so I tell him, buddy, we got to sit here for 5 minutes. But once they tell us it's time to go, you're not going to have to stand in line long. Boy, it's almost like if you're driving in a car and your kid is like, are we there yet? 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 Every 2 seconds, he was, Dad, is it time for us to go yet? No, buddy, just keep waiting. Oh, it's just taking forever. Dad, is it ready yet? No, son. You just asked me that 20 seconds ago. They will call us when they're ready. Oh, this is taking so long. I don't want to sit here so long. I need to get on the plane. Buddy, just chill. Daddy, are we there yet? Is it time? Can we get on the plane yet? Can we go stand in line? I'm like, buddy, you don't want to get up yet. Because if you get up and try to rush, all you're going to do is get up, lose your seat, and he'll have to stand. And you don't want to stand, do you? No. Okay. But can we get on a plane now? You get what happened. It just kept happening. This cycle just kept happening over and over and over and over and over. And again, as a parent, I'm watching my son go through this. And it's just sitting here and I'm thinking, man, we are the same way with God. God, you told me that you were going to that you promised me that you'll be with me and never leave me. Lord, you promised that you were going to get me out of this situation. Lord, you promised me that you wanted me to use these gifts and talents. And is it time yet? Have you opened the door yet? Hey, did you do this yet? Hey, did you do this? Hey, Lord, you're moving too slow. I don't want to sit here anymore. Why can't you just move me to my next season in my life? Can we be there yet? Is it time for us to move? You're moving too slow. At one point, he looked up at the flight agent and was like, you guys are moving so slow. I'm ready to go. And I'm like, buddy, you can't get on the plane yet. But why? I can see the plane. I can see it. I can see they got the thing right there, Daddy. Like you said, why can't I get on the plane? I need to get on the plane now. Well, buddy, you can't right now. Why? And I had to tell him, because there's a process that's happening that you can't see. I said, buddy, they got to get the people off the plane first. Then they have to clean the plane. Then they have to wait for the other flight crew to come in to get the place ready for you. If you try to get on that plane right now, it's going to be dirty and somebody's going to be sitting in your seat. I was like, do you want to do that? Well, no. And that's the same thing that's happening for us. It's crazy being a parent because it reminds me so much of how we operate with God. Brothers and sisters, listen. God may not have released you or moved you to your next season yet because it's not ready. He's still working it out. He's still putting all of the pieces together for you to be able to experience what it is that he has for you. But if you're so impatient, you're going to miss the blessing of the waiting room. You can't rush this thing. And for many of us, I get it. You want so bad to be in that next season of your life. But hear me, brothers and sisters, there's nothing worse than rushing through your seasons. Get acquainted with God's waiting rooms. Because in God's waiting rooms, God is doing something. He's preparing something. If you short circuit the process, you're not going to be able to fully experience what God has for you. You don't know what God's doing behind the scenes. You don't know what relationships he's restoring. You don't know what doors he's opening that are 3 doors in front of and 3 doors behind the door that you think that needs to be open. He's working, but we have to be patient. And there's something that happens in the waiting room. There's something that happens in the waiting room that helps us prepare for the area over there. Can I share with you what happened with my son? As we're sitting there in the gate, at the gate, and he's getting restless. I said, well, buddy, while you're waiting, one of the things that daddy can do while we're waiting is that I can connect your tablet to the internet. I said, I can do that because the plane is right here. So since the plane is right here, I can connect to the plane's Wi-Fi and it gives you access to things that you can't have here in the gate with the plane not being here. Brothers and sisters, what am I saying? There's usually blessings in the waiting room. Blessings in the waiting room that if you are rushing, you will miss. There may be some things and opportunities that God wants you to take advantage of in this season, in your waiting room, that can be beneficial for you and also be helpful for you in your next season. But if you move in too fast, if you're so impatient and you don't want to wait for what God has for you, you want to try to do it on your own, you will short circuit the process. And not only will you short circuit the process, but you may miss a blessing that may be sitting right in front of you. There's blessings in the waiting room. God uses that waiting space to do some of his most amazing work. But then the last thing that I saw from my son, and it was so cute. I actually videoed it and I sent it to some of our family members before we actually took off. I've been on a plane since I was young. I've been flying for a long, long, long time. A long time. A long time. A very long time. I'm used to flying. I'm used to going in and putting my bag up. Like I'm used to the line walking into the plane. I'm used to having to, get into my seat and get situated, putting my lap belt on. I'm used to, opening up the windows or maybe closing the windows. I'm used to turning on the air, setting the lighting right so that I can just get comfortable. Like I'm used to putting my bag underneath the seat in front of me. Like I'm used to all of this. I'm used to how it is to fly. I'm used to when they're taxiing the plane and then we take off. I'm used to when we reach cruising altitude, when I can pull my tray table down. I'm used to all of that. In fact, I'm so used to it that I forget half of this stuff. I just do it out of rote, out of like memory. There's no joy in me doing this and flying. In fact, I get irritated having to fly, even though flying makes things a lot smoother. I'm just so used to it. I've taken it for granted. But my son, this is the first flight that he can remember. All of this is new to him. Him walking through the tarmac to get to the plane, and he is blown away. I'm watching him look up and down. I'm watching him look at the people behind us. He's just mesmerized by this. I'm watching his eyes light up as he got to see the pilot and he's seeing the stewardess and he's, looking at the seats in the plane. He's looking at the lights. He's telling me about everything that's happening. Mind you, he's having to wear a mask. He's doing all this stuff, things that would have irritated, I thought would irritate him. He did not matter. Why? Because this was a new experience for him. He was just thankful to be on the plane. I watched him as he put his book back down and he kept on saying, "So Dad, what do I do now? What do I do now? Dad, do I sit down?" "Yeah, you sit down, buddy." "Okay. Well, can I put my seatbelt on?" "Wow, this is a cool seatbelt. This seatbelt's not like the seatbelts that I see before." "Oh, Dad, look, I get two windows. Look, there's two windows. I can see, look, I can see the wing of the plane. I can see the engine." Like, he's so blown away. He's so blown away. I'm messing with the air for him, and he's like, "Oh my God, I get my own air. This is so cool." And then the plane begins to move. And I watched as my son was absolutely mesmerized by the flight. Every aspect of the flight, my son saw, he experienced. He looked over at me and with this big old smile on his face and was like, "Thanks, Daddy. Like, this is cool. Flying on a plane is cool." And it hit me. That same kind of thankfulness that my son has for flying in a plane, is the same kind of heart, same kind of well of thankfulness that you and I should have when God moves and how he always does every day that he gives us opportunity to experience his grace and mercy. It's interesting that Jesus said that, man, you need to have faith like a child, because there's something about children when they experience something that they're so thankful for. They suck up the entire blessing. They see everything, they experience everything, and they're so thankful. They don't forget it. In optometry, there's this concept called visual lethargy. Visual lethargy. It's this idea that you could drive down the street the first time you've ever driven down the street, you see everything. You experience everything. You see the color of the trees. You see the color of the doors. You see the stop signs, what color they are. You see how the street moves. Like, you're able visually to see everything. Why? Because it's the first time that you've seen it. You will be, to some degree, you appreciate things that you see. You're like, "Man, this looks nice. This looks like, oh, I didn't even notice that. That's nice." You're driving through the street. It's new to you. It's new to your eyes. And so your eyes pick up so much. Let's say the fifth time you drive down the street, you still notice some of the stuff, but you don't notice all of the like with clarity like you did the first time. You may have forgotten that that door was red, or you may have forgotten that they have that type of flag in their yard. You may have forgotten that this street weaves a little bit. You may have forgotten that cars kind of pull out kind of funny here or there. Why? Because your brain is beginning to be familiarized with where you're going. So it's tunneling out some of the stuff that you've seen on the first time. The 50th time you've gone down that street, you don't notice any of that stuff. You don't notice none of the street colors. You don't know none of the flag. Like, you don't see nothing. Matter of fact, you are so focused on getting where you're going that you don't even remember the street name of the street. You just know you got to get there to get to where you're going. You may be now upset that you got to drive down this street because it's always traffic. You have literally blocked out all of the stuff around you that blew you away. And optometrists call this visual lethargy. You get so familiar with something that you don't even register it in your peripherals anymore. We get spiritual lethargy too, where we get so inundated with God's goodness that we see all the time, that God woke you up and that he started you on your way, right? He gave you a sound mind. Like, you see that he's opening up doors for you, and the fact that you got a job and you got a car, you got a house over your head, right? All of these things that when you first got saved, or, when you've been in the midst of a mess and God has shown out, like, you remember all of these things. You internalize all these things. You can see all of these blessings and your heart is so thankful. But over time, You become so inundated with it that, man, you forget. You just block out what God is doing around you. Why? Because you're so focused on where you're trying to go. You're so focused on the next thing that you have failed to see the blessings all around you. And can I share something with you? Spiritual lethargy is scary. And we have to take this warning in stride, because visual lethargy, just like spiritual lethargy, gets us to a place where we stop looking for the blessings that are all around us. And then we fall into a season where we think God's not moving because we are failing to see it. You may be in a season right now. You may be in a season right now where you're saying to yourself, when is God going to move? And I'm about to push on it a little bit. That's the wrong question. The better question is, where is God moving in my life? Because he's always moving. You just have to ask for eyes to see it. Lord, just get me out of this season. God's like, open up your eyes. I'm not going to get you out of the season until you open up your eyes. Because if you can't see all of the blessings that I have around you, then why would I move you to a season where I'm going to blow your mind and you're not going to even be able to visually comprehend it? You're not even going to be able to look for it. You see, we think God is only in the big moments of our life. And this might be tight, but it's right. Many of us think of God moving only in the big, and when we look in scriptures, in the pillar of fire and the pillar of smoke, right? We see the big storm on the mountaintop when Moses goes up and everybody's fearful of it. We see in Job where there's a tornado and God is speaking through it. Like we look to see God in the big moments of our life. We've been trained to say, and that God is going to only he going to show up when you need him, right? And it sets up this idea that the only time we're going to experience God is when we're going through something or we are at our wits end, right? Like that is, we're at our lowest, right? We when we need like the mountaintop moment. And that's myopic in our thinking, because God is not a God of just the mountaintop moments or the 11th hour moments. But as Dr. Paul Tripp says, he says, man, God is the God of the mundane moments. The mundane moments. The ordinary moments of your life. He's there. And he's moving. If you were to take a moment to just think about and write down all of the things that God has done, is doing right now in your midst, as you're sitting right here, think about all the ways that God has moved to get you to the place for you to watch this right now. I bet you could come up with almost 20 or 30 different things that God has done right now that you have taken for granted. But what if we started to look at our lives differently? Instead of asking God, when are you going to move? But God, how are you moving? Where are you moving in my life? I think it could radically change how we come and view seasons of our life. Because if we know that God is always moving in our lives, and it sets us up to have hope to know that, man, no matter what season we're going through, God is with me and he's doing something. And if you remember what I've shared before, that if you are in Christ, man, the promise of scripture is true, that, man, he's going to work all of these things out for your good and for his glory. So he's working something. No matter if it's good, bad, the ugly, he's using all of it. So you can look at this situation and say, I know that you're in here somewhere. This is a tough season. It hurts, but you're in here somewhere. Let me find out where you've been moving and how you've been moving, not when, because you've always been moving. Last thing I'll share with you, and then I'm done. And it's very quick. We got back home about 12:30 last night. So just past midnight. We had a delay in Chicago. Ended up getting back here late. And my son was asking before he fell asleep, I just want to see my mom. I miss my brother. I miss my sisters. And I told him, buddy, I'm going to get you home. I'm going to get you home. So he fell asleep in the car. He didn't even realize, the drive back. I got him through the door. Kristen opened the door. And the first thing that when he opened up his eyes was he saw his mom. And so he gave her a hug and all these things. And then he looked at me, kind of gave me that little like, and went right to sleep. Man, I leave you with this. God is a God that keeps his promises. God is a God who keeps his promises. It was cool to be as a father to be able to say, look, buddy, I'm going to get you home, and to get him home. I don't always bat 1,000. I don't always bat 100. I miss it a lot. I promise a lot, and sometimes I fail. But it reminded me that we serve a God who always keeps his promises. If he said he's going to do it, he's going to do it. Philippians 1:6 says that, man, he began a good work in you, and he will complete it. Be encouraged today that God is a God who keeps his promises. So if he said it, he's going to do it. Well, you all have a good rest of the day. Have a good rest of the day. I do look forward to seeing you all, here virtually. We will jump back into Mark chapter 5 tomorrow. But as I always told you, it's always cool to take real life stories and be able to encourage you from my life or from things that we see in our times together. So I hope that this has been encouraging for you. Please like and share this post. Please do that. That is extremely beneficial for us as it helps us to continue to encourage others. Again, if you want more information about our church, you can find it at reconcilecincy.org. Also, if you missed our gathering on Sunday, it was virtual. We actually have a link to the sermon that I preached, the actual worship service that I preached in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so make sure that you go on our Facebook page, on Reconcile Community Church's Facebook page, and you can watch that sermon. I encourage you to do so, or you should be able to look on my own private page and you'll be able to see it if you're friends with me there. But either way, you should be able to do that, and we'll try to figure out a way to get it on our website as well. Well, that's all I have for you all today. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow as we jump back into the Gospel of Mark. You all have a great rest of the day.